My own family. They didn't just turn their backs on me, they tried to erase me from their story, and when I finally pieced together why, it shattered everything I thought I knew. I'm Emily, 28 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the odd one out. The black sheep. You know the type. I don't fit into their picture-perfect mold. I'm not married, no kids, and frankly, I couldn't care less about the latest gossip. I've always been a little more independent, a little more adventurous, and I guess, a little more me than they'd ever truly accept. This whole mess started a few months ago. My aunt, the family matriarch, she's always been the one who orchestrates everything. One day, she casually dropped it into conversation, the upcoming family reunion. She talked about this gorgeous beach vacation, all these activities planned, how excited everyone was. She even gave me the dates. I was floored. Seriously, completely taken aback. I had no idea. We'd talked just weeks before, and not a single soul had mentioned it. Still, I figured maybe I just missed an email, a text, whatever. So, like any sane person, I asked her why I hadn't received an invitation yet. I was genuinely curious, thinking it had to be a mistake. What she said next. It still haunts me. Oh, we didn't think you'd care, she chirped, so flippantly, like she was talking about the weather. The words hit me like a physical blow. Not just a punch to the stomach, but a full-body slam. It wasn't even the fact that I hadn't been invited, it was the sheer, dismissive way she said it. As if my presence, my feelings, meant absolutely nothing to her or anyone else in my family. I tried to keep my cool, but my mind was screaming. I knew I was always the black sheep, but this felt different. Worse. It felt like I was invisible. I wasn't even worth considering. The pain was instant, sharp, and, honestly, humiliating. But the real sting, the one that burned, was how utterly nonchalant she was. I expected an apology, or at least some kind of excuse. Nope. Nothing. Just a shrug, you know? And that infuriating, we didn't think you'd care. I stood there, frozen, my heart hammering against my ribs. Right? I managed, forcing a laugh, trying to play it off. Well, that's fine, I guess. But inside, I was boiling. How could they just erase me from their lives, their plans, like I didn't even exist? That night, after I hung up, a wave of anger and betrayal washed over me. I'd always tried so hard to stay connected, despite their constant coldness. Holidays, gifts, always trying to keep the peace. But this was the absolute last straw. I won't lie, I was hurt. Deeply. But more than that, I was furious. This was my family, and they had just, so plainly, told me I wasn't wanted. They hadn't even thought for 1 second that maybe, just maybe, I'd want to be included. So, I decided. I was going to do something I'd never done before. I was going to get back at them. And it wouldn't be small. For weeks, I plotted. Revenge is sweet, but I wasn't after some petty prank. No, this had to be big. They needed to feel exactly what I felt when they dismissed me. And then the idea hit me. It was perfect. I booked a first-class ticket to Paris. Yes, you heard that right. I wasn't just going on a trip, I was going on a luxury, once-in-a-lifetime vacation. And I wasn't telling a single soul in my family. I was going to flood my social media with pictures. Me by the Eiffel Tower, dining at incredible restaurants, living it up in the City of Lights. Every single one of them would see exactly what they'd done. The day I left, a rush of pure, unadulterated excitement coursed through me. I felt free. Free from their judgment, free from the constant disappointment they always seemed to inflict. As the plane lifted off, I realized this wasn't just about seeing the world. This was about proving something to myself, that I didn't need them. I could make my own memories, live my own life, find my own happiness without their approval. Landing in Paris was a blur of beauty. The city was everything I'd imagined, history, culture, a magic that made me feel truly alive. I spent my days wandering, sipping coffee in cozy cafes, getting lost in art galleries. But with every step, I couldn't shake this feeling, this intuition, that something back home was about to shift. It was like I could already hear the whispers, the gossip, the slow dawning realization. Emily was gone, and she was living her best life without them. For a while, I just basked in it. I posted photos, my captions laced with subtle jabs, hinting at the amazing life I was finally living, a life they'd never given me a chance to be part of. I even posted a picture of myself at a fancy Parisian restaurant, glass in hand, with the caption, "Not bad for someone who wouldn't care." Then the messages started. First from my aunt. Casual at first, asking how I was doing, but I could feel the tension simmering beneath her words. "We miss you," she wrote, a hint of guilt in her tone. "Hope you're having fun." I didn't reply right away. I wanted her to sit with that discomfort, to stew in the knowledge that I wasn't at home, waiting for an invitation. Instead, I was living a dream, and I was doing it without them. The next day, my mom texted. She wasn't subtle. "What's going on, Emily?" she demanded, clearly annoyed. "Why didn't you tell us you were going to Paris?" She tried to sound concerned, but I could feel the frustration, the anger that she wasn't in control of my life anymore. I let that message sit too. I wanted her to feel the tension, the massive space between us that had always existed, but was now wider than ever. Eventually, I typed back, "I'm just living my life, Mom. Maybe you should try it sometime." That's when things really started to unravel. Over the next few days, I started hearing things. My phone buzzed with notifications, whispers spreading like wildfire. My aunt, who'd so easily dismissed me, suddenly reached out again, desperation thick in her voice. "Why didn't you tell us?" she practically screamed. "Why didn't you give us a chance to explain?" "Explain what?" I retorted, my own voice surprisingly steady. "Explain why I wasn't invited? Explain why I didn't matter?" She went silent for hours. I knew she was stewing, wondering what had happened to the Emily who always kept quiet, always went along with whatever they said. But I wasn't that person anymore. Not after everything. That night, I was dining at this quaint little bistro, feeling both incredibly empowered and a little sad. It was a weird mix. I didn't want them to win by making me feel sorry for myself, but that loneliness still found its way in. It wasn't about the family reunion anymore, not really. It wasn't even just about the trip. It was about proving to myself that I could survive, thrive even without them. And I was doing it. As I scrolled through my phone, a new message popped up from my aunt. This time with an attachment. A picture. It was the entire family gathered at the beach, all smiling, eating, laughing. I could almost feel the tension building inside me, but I didn't know why yet. And then, right in the middle of that picture, I saw something I never expected. I had to zoom in to be sure, but there it was, my sister, Lily, holding my mom's wedding ring. I stared at that picture for what felt like hours. My mind raced, but my heart just pounded. My mom's wedding ring. The one she never, ever took off. The one I always remembered on her finger. And now, in Lily's hand? It wasn't a coincidence. It was her ring. There was no mistaking it. I just sat there, phone in hand, completely frozen. My sister, Lily. She and we've never exactly seen eye to eye. She was Mom's perfect daughter, always doing what she was told, always seeking approval. Married young, kids, the whole picture-perfect suburban life. I never understood why Mom treated her like she could do no wrong, while I was constantly overlooked. But this felt different. Deeper. This felt like a betrayal. My hands started to shake as I quickly typed a message to my aunt. "Why is Lily holding Mom's wedding ring?" I hit send, staring at the screen, waiting. A storm was brewing inside me, an anger too intense to ignore. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Why would Lily do something like that? Was she trying to take my place? Or was there something else I hadn't been told? Seconds stretched into minutes, still no response. My stomach twisted into knots. I didn't know whether to feel sad, betrayed, or just utterly furious. Everything I thought I knew about my family was crumbling. Finally, my aunt replied, but her message was far from reassuring. It's just a picture, Emily. You're overthinking it. Overthinking it? I was not overthinking. Something was going on, something didn't add up, and I wasn't about to let it slide. I spent the next few hours deep in thought, my mind racing. It was too much of a coincidence, Lily holding Mom's ring at the reunion, a reunion I wasn't invited to. It felt like a sign, a symbol that I'd been replaced, erased. Like I didn't matter anymore. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just about me. This was about how my family had always treated me. I'd always felt like an outsider, the one who didn't belong, but now? It felt like they were actively trying to push me out. And for what? To elevate Lily? To make her the golden child? To erase me from the picture entirely? I took a deep breath. And I made a decision. I wasn't going to sit back and let this happen. They thought they could brush me aside, but I wasn't going to let that go without a fight. If they wanted to pretend I didn't matter, I was going to show them just how much they'd regret it. I'd been on this incredible journey in Paris, living my life exactly how I always wanted, free from their toxic influence. But now, it wasn't just about enjoying the city of lights. It was about making sure they understood that I was done being their doormat. I let the tension build for the next few days. I kept posting those pictures, showcasing just how amazing my life was without them. I knew it would eat at them, especially seeing me thrive while they were stuck in their petty family drama. I even posted a picture from the Louvre with the caption, "Living my best life, even if you didn't think I'd care." But the real kicker came when my mom called. I hadn't spoken to her in days, and I wasn't sure I was ready. But I picked up anyway. "Emily, we need to talk," she said, her voice tight-clipped. "What is this about the ring?" I knew instantly she was referring to the picture I'd sent my aunt. "What do you mean?" I asked, feigning innocence. "Why are you making such a big deal out of this?" "It's just a family heirloom." Lily was admiring it, she said, her voice turning defensive. "You're being dramatic, Emily. You've always been dramatic." Dramatic? I couldn't believe it. I'd been dismissed by my family for so long, and now they were dismissing my feelings about something this monumental. "Mom, you're missing the point," I said, my voice shaking with frustration. "It's not about the ring. It's about everything. It's about how you and Aunt Sarah, and everyone else, have just decided I'm not worth your time anymore." Silence hung heavy on the other end. For a moment, I actually thought she might be hearing me, that maybe the wall she'd built around her heart would finally crack. But then she spoke, her voice colder than I'd ever heard it. "Emily, I don't know what you're trying to prove with all this, but let me tell you something. You've always made things harder than they need to be. Your father and I have done our best to raise you, but maybe you should look at the bigger picture here. You're the one pushing us away." I couldn't believe my ears. She was actually blaming me. For everything. All the years of neglect, all the times they'd made me feel invisible. And now I was the one at fault? My heart shattered right there. I knew this was it. I'd given them so many chances to make things right. But now it was clear. They had made their choice. But there was one thing they didn't know. While they were busy blaming me, busy trying to turn the tables, I was gathering information. I had been watching, listening, waiting for the right moment. And I was about to expose something that would make them wish they had never treated me this way. But for now, I needed to play my cards carefully. I needed to make sure they wouldn't see it coming. I needed to make sure they understood that I wasn't some naive, innocent bystander anymore. I was taking control, and this was just the beginning. The tension between us continued to grow, the cracks in our family widening. And I knew deep down that the next time they reached out, it would be too late. The days that followed in Paris were some of the longest of my life. I stayed, still savoring every moment of the independence I had fought for. But the freedom felt bittersweet now. Every time I thought about the family reunion, about that picture with Lily holding my mom's wedding ring, a cold sense of betrayal settled in my chest. My aunt and mom kept calling, and each time, I ignored them. I couldn't bring myself to speak to them. Not yet. But I wasn't going to just wait around, letting the situation drag on. If they wanted a drama-free life, they were going to get it, but it would be on my terms. I spent the next few days digging. I wasn't about to get caught up in petty family gossip and just leave it at that. I wanted the truth, the full story, and I wasn't going to let them spin it any other way. It wasn't long before I started pulling at the threads. I found old documents and photos tucked away in my mom's house, things that didn't make sense, at least not at first. A few faded letters, a strange-looking will that my mother had updated years ago, and then an old diary. One I had completely forgotten about. I started piecing things together, connecting dots that had never quite made sense to me before. One night, I decided to take a deep dive into that old diary. It had been my mom's, written long before I was born. I remembered she used to keep it hidden, tucked away in her closet. I hadn't looked at it in years, too many painful memories attached. But tonight felt different. I felt like I needed to know. As I flipped through the yellowing pages, my heart hammered. It was like reading about a completely different person. Entries about her early marriage to my father, her hopes and dreams for her children. But then, something else. Something I didn't expect. The words jumped out at me. I always knew that one day I would have to choose between Emily and Lily. I froze. What did that even mean? I frantically flipped the page, desperate for an explanation. Instead, the next entry was even more cryptic. Lily has always been the easy one, but Emily, she's a fighter. It's hard to balance both, but I'm doing my best. My hand shook as I read those words over and over. What was Mom trying to say? Was she truly making a choice between us? Had I never been enough for her? Was Lily always going to be the one she chose? I slammed the diary shut, my chest tight with a suffocating mix of anger, hurt, and confusion. The whole thing felt like a sick joke. My mom, writing about being torn between her two daughters, and I had never known. I'd always assumed we were on equal footing. But this just confirmed everything I'd felt for years. I wasn't her favorite. I was the one who was always too much, too loud, too emotional, too demanding. Lily was the one who could sit quietly, follow the rules, never rock the boat. She was the good daughter. The easy one. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I had come too far to crumble now. The next day, I couldn't sit still. I needed answers, but I knew I wouldn't get them from my mom. She'd already made her choice. I needed to find out what was really going on, and I wasn't going to wait for her to come to me. So, I did the only thing I knew would work. I went to Aunt Sarah. Aunt Sarah had always been close to my mom. A constant presence. But something told me she knew more than she was letting on. It was time for her to fess up. I called her up. The conversation started normal enough. Hey, Aunt Sarah. I was hoping to talk to you about something about the reunion, I said, keeping my voice steady, as if everything was perfectly fine. She hesitated, a slight tension in her voice when she finally responded. Emily, sweetie, I told you before. It's just a family thing, and we didn't think you'd be interested. I clenched my jaw. I'm interested now. There's something going on, Aunt Sarah, and I'm not stupid. What's really going on with Lily and the ring? She sighed. A long, drawn-out exhale. Emily, you don't understand. It's complicated. Your mother, she's always been so hard on herself. And things aren't what they seem. My pulse quickened. I know it's complicated, but I deserve to know the truth, Aunt Sarah. I've been kept in the dark for far too long. There was a pause on the other end. I could hear her breathing, the slight rustling of papers, maybe even the sound of her fidgeting. Finally, she spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. Your mom was going to leave your father. She was ready to leave him for someone else, someone she loved deeply. But then something happened. She found out she was pregnant with you. And that changed everything. I felt the ground shift beneath me. What do you mean, it changed everything? The man your mother loved, he wasn't a man you'd want to know. He was dangerous, Emma. He had a hold on her in a way your father never did. But when she found out she was pregnant with you, she chose to stay with your father. She thought it was the right thing to do. I was reeling. My mind couldn't catch up with what she was saying. Are you telling me that I was some kind of second choice? Aunt Sarah's voice faltered. No, Emily, it wasn't like that, but she was torn. She loved both men in different ways, and she never fully got over what she had to give up when she chose your father. You were always part of that choice. It was never just about loving you. It was about duty. About what was right. The weight of her words crushed me. I had always known there was tension, that something was off. But this was a bombshell. It wasn't just my sister that my mother favored. It was the very idea of my existence that had come into question. I had always thought I was the one who needed to prove myself, but I never realized how deep the roots of that feeling went. I sat in silence for what felt like forever. I could hear Aunt Sarah waiting on the other end, expecting a response. But I couldn't speak. Not yet. I needed time to digest this new truth. Finally, I managed to croak out, "And Lily, does she know?" Aunt Sarah paused again. I could hear the hesitation. She doesn't know everything, Emily. But she knows enough. Your mom never wanted you to know. She wanted to protect you from all of this. I was done being protected. I was done being the family secret. I took a deep breath. Thank you, Aunt Sarah. I'll talk to you later. I ended the call feeling like the walls were closing in on me. I had been living in the shadow of my family's secrets for too long. It was time to expose them. But how? And at what cost? The days that followed were a blur. I couldn't shake the weight of Aunt Sarah's words. My entire life had been based on a lie, and the more I thought about it, the more I felt like a ghost in my own family. They had all played their parts, and I had been nothing more than an innocent bystander, unaware of the twisted game they had been playing. But I was done being a pawn. I was going to end this, even if it meant burning every bridge. I booked a flight back to the States the next day. It felt like the only thing I could do. Finally face my mother. Confront her. Get the answers I deserved. I wasn't going to sit idly by while they continued to pretend everything was fine. There had to be some sort of reckoning, some way to make them see what they had done to me. When I landed, I went straight to my mother's house. My heart hammered in my chest, and my thoughts swirled with everything I had uncovered. I was angry, yes, but more than that, I was hurt. I needed her to understand how deep the betrayal went. Not just because of the reunion, but because of the years of lies and omissions that had haunted me. The moment I stepped into the living room, my mother's face froze. She had been expecting me, but I could tell she had no idea what I knew. She tried to call a few times, but I'd ignored her. "Emily," she said, her voice strained, as if unsure how to approach me. "You're back." "Yeah," I said flatly, dropping my suitcase onto the floor. "We need to talk." She took a deep breath, glancing at the floor before looking back at me, her face pale. "I've been waiting for this. I know you're upset about the reunion, but there's more to it than that." "I know," I interrupted, my voice hard. "You don't get to explain that away. I know about the man. I know you almost left Dad. I know about the choice you made. The truth is, you never really wanted me, did you? I was just a second option. The right thing to do." Her face went white. For a moment, she didn't say anything. I could see the shame in her eyes. But there was something else there too. "I never wanted you to know, Emily," she said softly, her voice breaking. "It wasn't about not loving you. It was just hard. I thought that if I could keep this from you, maybe you wouldn't hate me. Maybe we could just move on, like nothing happened. Move on. I repeated, disbelief and fury welling up inside me. Do you hear yourself? This isn't something we can just forget. You didn't just make a choice between men. You made a choice between me and your own happiness. I wasn't enough to matter until I was the right thing to do. How am I supposed to get over that, Mom? Tears welled up in her eyes, and she stepped toward me, reaching out like she wanted to hold me. But I took a step back, not ready for her touch. I was so tired of feeling like I had to accept whatever scraps of love she threw my way. I never meant to hurt you, Emily. I was doing what I thought was best, she whispered, pleading. You have to understand. I was young. I was confused. I understand perfectly, I snapped, cutting her off. But that's the problem, isn't it? You were always choosing. You never stopped choosing Lily. And then there was me, always left in the background, always fighting for a place in this family. A long silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken words. My mom's face twisted with guilt, but it wasn't enough. I was done waiting for an apology that would never truly come. I turned to leave, grabbing my bag. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. I'm done. I didn't look back as I left her standing there. I knew this was a turning point, but I wasn't sure yet if it was the right one. A wave of exhaustion washed over me. So many years of trying to get it right, of trying to fit into a family that had never truly accepted me for who I was. But as I walked out the door, I felt a strange sense of relief. The truth had finally come out. The toxic undercurrent of my family's dynamic was exposed for all its ugliness. I didn't need their validation anymore. I could take control of my own story. But just when I thought I was free, just when I thought I could start fresh, my phone buzzed. A message from Lily. I heard what you said to Mom. You need to apologize. You're being selfish. This isn't just about you. I stared at the screen, my fingers trembling as I typed out a response. No, I'm done apologizing. I'm done being the one who's always in the wrong. This is about me, and you're not going to change that. I hit send and put my phone down, walking out of my mother's house for what felt like the last time. As I stepped into the unknown, I finally understood something that had eluded me for years. Sometimes, cutting ties with family isn't about hating them. It's about protecting yourself from a love that isn't unconditional. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally me. Truly me. And that was enough.